Hey guys, sorry for the absence there. I realized that I was caught up on all the videos that I had to upload for you guys except for one, and I missed the safe window for when I could upload it. I'll tell you more about that later. But I've got something to discuss today. I'm going to be talking about the Blade trilogy, so a tad bit of background information. I only really discovered these movies because Captain Logan reviewed them in his Superhero Rewind thing, and after listening to a couple of minutes of the first one, I decided to check these movies out. Saw three of them within 48 hours of each other, and I'm impressed, I'll tell you that right now, but let's dive into it in detail. So the first Blade movie, I was actually real impressed with how much I liked it, because at the beginning of it, it felt very slow-paced, and felt like we were in the middle of a story, but the film establishes enough of the pre-story that we actually really don't even need any more backstory because what it did there was pretty good. It goes to show, as Captain Logan stated, that you can have a superhero movie without really that much origin, although a little origin is required. But I thought it was a well done movie. What they did with the vampires was pretty good, and I like how the vampires admit in this movie that they can't really treat humans the way that us humans treat like cattle and such. Ever seen The Matrix? And I also like how well acted it was because the vampires, I felt nervous about the heroes because of that. I felt that Blade was pretty menacing, and I like that cold exterior he has, and like how distant he, shall we say, feels or acts like from humanity because, to tie back into like various history classes, you know how various times when history teachers talk about like the Vietnam War and, mention how a lot of people went through post-traumatic stress, that they just act like totally different. Well, Blade is kind of like that, except his emotion scale is just, all the way down there and such. And it goes to reinforce how I felt about the movie Daredevil. I'm a lot more intimidated by a big, strong black guy rather than a big, strong white guy. So yeah, that was a good choice of actors, actually. And then everybody else, they were acted pretty well. The plot twists were fairly clever. I love the fight scenes. The amount of gore, like with Punisher Warzone, it was kind of surprising at first, but the more I look at the product, the more I appreciate it, and I don't really know what else I could say. I just thought it was a good movie. So, I think I'm going to go with 4 out of 5, actually. Why 4 and not 4.5? Well, a little bit of it is because I saw number 2, and just because, don't really have too much desire to, re-watch it, shall we say, But I still think it's a nice movie. 4. Now, Blade 2, when I saw it, I wasn't expecting to like it as much as the first because it felt like there would be a lot more action in there, not as great of a storyline and such, but as I watched more and more of it, I found myself even more hooked to this movie than the first because, it felt darker than the previous one, and even though the action scenes do take up a lot of the movie, that added a lot more desperation to it, which I thought was great. And then the continuation of the Whistler storyline, I was really impressed by that because, like, I totally expected Whistler to go just, be treated as like Obi-Wan Kenobi and just be killed, but the way that they brought him back was just amazing, actually. And then the villain for this movie, I mean, like, yeah, I thought the vampires were scary, but I look at this guy, ooh, yeah. And I also liked the integration of humor into this movie, and they didn't do it in a bad way because this movie found an extremely great balance that is so hard to achieve, having to balance humor, action, superhero-ness, and horror all into one thing, but they did it! I was just amazed by that. And even like the anti-heroes, I found myself caring for them somewhat, sure, they made some stupid decisions, but it actually fit their personality for once. Because, like, well, for those of us, who have seen movies that have the main cast of characters, getting picked off one by one over and over, like the Predator and Alien movies. We see people in those movies make stupid decisions all the time, and even though some of them are nice deaths, it's just real annoying. But here, it was just a lot better. I was real impressed by that. And then the emotion and all the acting, Blade having to decide to trust the vampires, trying to save Whistler, and yet help him out. All the discussions between the vampires and where they want to stand, and just, wow, I was impressed. Now, I do have some actual dislikes for this movie, however. It actually was fine all the way to the last fourth of it, and then it started to get annoying because, like, when Blade's human sidekick turns on him, I felt like you could have done it a lot better, just like have it be that he didn't want to turn on Blade, but the vampires, like, forced him to, and then he gets killed helping Blade. I just like the character a lot better that way, even though that did make good use of the bomb, but even then I thought it was stupid that Blade still didn't just trust him enough that he would go after the tech stuff, And then the vampire guy just sitting back and letting Blade kill all of his soldiers or grunts before attacking Blade. I hate when bad guys do that. I mean, like in the first movie, there at least was an excuse for it, because the vampire that had got the godly powers into him, he just got them, has to figure out what he can do and such, but here there is no excuse. He should have dived right in there after Blade, okay? And then there's the fact that Blade, all he had to do was fall into the pool of blood, and then he suddenly regained. Now, obviously in the first movie he drank someone's blood, but that was just so he could, attack the vampires, and even then it seemed like his mind, shall we say, went more animalistic. But here, his mind didn't go animalistic. And, so I thought there were two more dislikes. Well, the final fight between Blade and that morphed vampire, I just felt like there were a little bit of comedic moments in there, And then finally, what the heck happened to the serum thing that Blade was taking in the first movie? Because there, they mentioned that, he's having trouble taking it, and even though he's still taking it in this movie, they just ignore it. Really? Just, you're going to abandon that plot thing? So yeah, I thought that was kind of stupid, but even with those dislikes, that really can't hurt my enjoyment of this movie. I enjoyed it far more than I expected. Now this one I'm going to give 4.5 out of 5. And then we move on to Blade Trinity. So, going into this, I knew that it probably wouldn't be as good as the first two, but that was literally all I knew about it. So, when Ryan Reynolds burst through that window, I was just like, whoa, Ryan Reynolds? Where the heck did he come from, But even when this movie started, I could tell that it was vastly different, and it appeared to have undergone a combination of Punisher Warzone and X-Men 3 The Last Stand transformation, because, well, obviously, I think most people know what happened with those movies, because if you compare X3 to the two before it, you could tell that it was directed by a different person. And then with Punisher Warzone, in comparison to the other two Punishers, Warzone felt less realistic and felt a lot more like a comic book and a lot brighter, less moody. So that freeway scene in Blade just killing human damage in cold blood in plain sight. Now I know what you're thinking, he did that in the first one. Well, in the first one, okay, he attacked people at a nightclub and people were confused there, and then there's the hospital, but again, people are confused, and he actually had a reason to there, because that really was a vampire, And then as the movie went on, the third one, I mean, more problems began to rise because killing Whistler off again and then bringing him back later in the movie, what was the deal with that? Why did Ryan Reynolds not mention that he saw Whistler later in the movie, you know? And like, since Whistler's a vampire, I don't think that explosion should have killed him. Well, actually that explains why he's alive, but yeah. And then how do I feel about Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel being in this movie? I feel like they add a nice bit of humor, and it's nice to see sidekicks that actually can defend themselves, although everyone that was with them, of course, gets killed the way you would expect them to. But one, Blade is right in how they just are treating it as a bit of a game, and then Ryan Reynolds, well, now I know why he was chosen to play Deadpool and X-Men Origins Wolverine, even though in that movie, there's a lot more reason for him to be the way he was. I mean, like, all the F-bombs that he keeps dropping, and he's saying that he's a vampire but was cured. Well, how did this cure come up? And, you know, the serum thingy again. Blade seems to have, like, perfected it a little bit better or something like that, along with Whistler. But what happened? That was a driving motive in the first one, but now it's just completely disregarded. Just what happened? You know? And, having the main villain be Dracula, I'm looking at him and I feel absolutely no menace from him. Really? This is like the Darth Vader of vampires or something like that. I should feel darn menace from this guy instead of the other two who were ordinary vampires. But I'm looking back at what I remember from the other movies and I'm looking at Dracula and I'm like, oh yeah, you're full of yourself, and like, oh, you just killed that person. Oh, I'm gonna stand up to you, Blade. It's not that easy to kill me. Oh, it was a lot easier than it should have been. Come on, you know it's bad when ordinary villains are better than the unworldly type of villain, you know? And all the other vampires in this movie, they're just darn comedic and stuff like that. And what happened to, like, just, and even Blade. Wesley Snipes still plays him, but this Blade acts completely different, dropping a lot more sarcasm into the thing, having an idea as to, you know, who should actually fight the vampires and such. Just, how did this happen, you know? Yeah, and the fact that there's multiple endings to this movie, yeah, what ending are we supposed to really support? Are we supposed to support the comedic ending where Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel are going after werewolves that look absolutely ridiculous? Are we supposed to realize that Blade is going to do the moral decision after not or maybe attacking the nurse when he should have the bloodlust under control and such? Or are we supposed to just see him ride into the sunset, which is completely cheesy? Jeez. Talk about a downgrade, yeah. Definitely goes to show that the third movie ends up being the worst, even though that's disproven just as many times as it's proven. I've gone into a few examples, but what the heck, let's do them again. Times where the third movie is the worst. This, X-Men, even though I don't mind X3, Scream 3, Avatar The Last Airbender, though on a personal note, I do prefer the third season over the first season. And then times where it's not the worst. Die Hard, Lord of the Rings, that one's kind of disputable. Well, use your imagination, you know? Okay? So this movie, I don't hate it as much as most people do, but oh man, does it have a lot of problems. I didn't even need Captain Logan's Superhero Rewind to fully explain everything. I could tell all the problems with it right there, okay? So, as a B movie, it's okay. As a movie, in comparison to the other two, it sucks. And I really do hope they either get a reboot out or another movie with Wesley Snipes to, continue this. 2 out of 5, I think that's the best rating for it, yeah. Oh, and did I check out Blade, the series? Yeah, I'm currently watching a bit of it right now, but I realize that I'm watching too many bits of things at once, so I need to gradually, tackle them one by one, I'll get to it eventually, trust me. I'm real interested in seeing what's happening to it. I've got my own little gripes about it, and I know it's only 1 season long, but trust me, you'll get a video for that, alright? Or at least descriptions telling you my thoughts on it, okay? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.